Merge lists are used quite a bit, which you're basically just taking, instead of joining lists together and using those, you are combining them fully into one instead of just having them connected together, holding on, they're linked, whatever the case may be. Now they are merged into one thing. There is no difference between what's in this, what's in that. You are combining these together into one field. So as you can see here, I have customer addresses, and I also have customers, but from a different connector. As with merge lists, you can combine different lists from multiple connectors together to get what you need to get. So like you can combine, like right here, I have two GP connectors, but you can do GP and BC, SQL and GP, whatever you need to do. You can combine different lists from different connectors together in a merge. But the big catch is, so here we have fields. So for each of these fields, they are built individually. So as you can see, the merge fields, what are we merging on? So ideally, it's similar to a join. You want fields that are going to be pretty much the same between the two. So let's say you're, like a very common example is accounts between GP and BC. So if you have your GP account number and your BC account number and they match, you are able to merge those together into a merge field, and that will work with your merge list. And then name as well, same principle. If the names are the same, you can merge them together and it'll show up from there. So now we have merge fields here. So these basically are extra fields that kind of give some information within the list to kind of tell you where they're coming from. So here we have source company, connector, list, just because not everything's going to be the same. So it kind of gives you an idea of where everything came from. So now if we go here into our preview, we can see our source company, our connector, and our source list. Then here we have our merged ID field and our merged name field. So that was a quick example of a merged list. Our next one is a restriction. Restriction lists are a great, very, very good thing for, I see a lot of good use case in data lake situations where you might have a big file, and instead of trying to pull back 5 gigs worth of data into a file and 500,000 records just to try and get at 500 records, you can use a restriction to take one of those lists and basically filter on it without having to manipulate that base list. You can still use it for other stuff. So like here's my base list. I have the customers list, standard as we've been with our examples. And as you can see here in the restriction list, here's our fields. Every single field that is available in that customers list is here. Those all get brought over, including any calculated if you have them, as well as the standard default fields that go into that base list. So you're basically creating a clone of that base list that is meant to have restrictions put on it. So here I put on a restriction of I only want customers whose name starts with the letter A. That's the only data I want returned in my list. So if I head on over to preview, bring that through, as you can see, only customers with the letter A are brought over. But now if I go and I change that to does not start with, so now our restriction's been changed. We head back, display a preview. Now we don't get any customers whose names start with the letter A. Now a restriction can be applied to any single field you have. Like let's say we only want customer IDs that start with C, or state we only want people within Nebraska, or whatever city. Just, yeah, there's tons of stuff. If you want a restriction where we only want data between the 1st of January and the end of February, just whatever, you can pretty much do a restriction on anything with any way you want it. It's basically putting a filter on a list that runs before you actually load up the list. Basically a pre-run filter. That's what a restriction is. So restriction lists are great for that. If you want to be able to get specific data on a base list that you know you're going to need consistently without having to manipulate that base list, so you can use it for other applications and other lists.